If you're watching this video, I'm guessing you already agree that equality is important, right? But have you ever asked yourself what we actually mean when we say that? Do we mean that we should be treating everyone in exactly the same way? Or is it something much deeper than that? Well, in this video, I'm going to be exploring those questions, and I hope that by the end, you'll be able to think about issues of equality in a completely different way. I don't think anyone who advocates for equality actually believes that we should be treating everyone in exactly the same way all the time. That just wouldn't make much sense considering we all have different needs, abilities, and circumstances. For example, no one who advocates for equality thinks it's wrong for doctors to offer prostate exams to biological men but not biological women, because biological men have a genuine need for this exam while biological women don't. And so offering it equally to everyone, regardless of their needs, just wouldn't make any sense. So if equality isn't about giving everyone the same treatment, what is it actually about? Well, I think the answer to this question can be found by exploring an idea known as equal consideration of interests, which is a principle put forward by moral philosopher and my boy, Peter Singer. If you've never heard of this principle before, then don't worry, I'm going to walk you through some hypothetical scenarios to show you what it means and why it matters. And as this is moral philosophy, all the scenarios will of course be about suffering. I'd like you to imagine that you've just seen two people on the street who've both been stabbed with a knife. They both appear to be in the same amount of pain and they're both asking for your help. I'm sure you'd agree that if you can, you should offer both of these people the same amount of help. It just wouldn't be fair to prioritize one person over the other. And I'm sure you'd also agree that if these two people were different races from one another, different genders, or different sexualities, that would not change the fact that they both have an equal interest and so they deserve equal consideration. In other words, what group they belong to just isn't ethically relevant under this principle, but their interest in avoiding suffering is. Now, instead, I'd like you to imagine seeing two injured people on the street asking for your help, but this time, only one of them has been stabbed. The other one has a splinter stuck in his finger. I'm sure you'd all agree that in this situation, it does make sense to prioritize one person over the other, because the person who's been stabbed is obviously suffering a lot more, and therefore has a stronger interest in avoiding their suffering. And just like in the first scenario, it's not ethically relevant what group either of these people belong to. What matters is their interest in avoiding suffering. So if you agree that it's fair to treat people the same if their needs are the same, and that it's also fair to treat people differently when their needs are different, and if you agree that preventing minor inconveniences is not more important than preventing intense suffering, then congratulations, you also agree with Peter Singer's principle. But what's great about this principle is that it doesn't just help us understand why things like racism, sexism, and homophobia are so unfair and immoral. It can also help us to spot ethical problems that we might not have even noticed before. Like, for example, how humans treat other animals. So if we all agree with the principle of equal consideration, how should this impact the way we treat other animals? We can't exclude them from our considerations just because they're part of a different group. And so to stay logically consistent, we need to take their needs and interests into account too. Like I said at the start of the video, different individuals have different interests, and so it would make no sense to treat other animals the same way we treat humans. One obvious example would be that most humans have an interest in learning to drive, and so it makes sense that we make driving lessons available to humans. But it wouldn't make any sense to offer driving lessons to my dog, because he obviously doesn't have an interest in learning to drive. Right? So when you're changing gear, what you want to do is you want to lift the clutch up as you're pushing the accelerator down so that you don't stall the car. Does that make sense? But one interest that humans and other animals definitely have in common is an interest in avoiding suffering. And because of this, I've got two more suffering-filled scenarios for you to consider. If you found a dog in the street suffering from a stab wound, and you had the choice between helping this dog or helping a human who had a splinter stuck in their finger, who would you prioritize? If we want to stay logically consistent, we absolutely should prioritize helping the dog. Because the dog's interest in avoiding intense suffering is clearly much stronger than the human's interest in avoiding a minor inconvenience. And just like in the first two scenarios, it shouldn't matter that they're both different species, because what group they belong to is not ethically relevant under this principle. But I don't think this third scenario is that controversial, as I think most people would willingly go out of their way to help the dog instead of the human, and that's why I thought up scenario 4. Before I describe this final scenario, I just want to make clear that even though some of the details will be very different from the other three scenarios, the underlying principle is exactly the same. If you had a craving for a bacon sandwich and would be inconvenienced by not having one, but the only way to get one was to force a pig into a gas chamber to suffocate to death in a confused state of suffering, whose interest should be prioritized? If you agree with the principle I've been talking about in this video, then the answer to this question should be unbelievably obvious, which means we can't keep pretending that our reluctance to give up eating animals is a good enough excuse to continue farming and slaughtering them. And I know real life is more complicated than the hypothetical scenarios I've given you, but if you truly do believe that equal interests deserve equal consideration, then I hope that the interests of animals will be something that you take more seriously from now on. Thanks so much for watching. If you agree or disagree with anything I've said, then definitely let me know in the comments. A like and subscribe would be hugely appreciated. And as always, be kind to yourselves and be kind to animals. I'll see you in the next one.